And good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Danielle Burnock from danielleburnock.com. Love yourself from Survive to Thrive, that lady on the internet who loves you. For any of you that are new today. Today, I have a wonderful lady, Amy Nordhues, sharing her story on what she's been through. It's been quite something. She is a sexual abuse survivor who went from being a victim to thriving as a child of God. She is a wife, she is a mom, she is a blogger, and now she is an author of her new book, Preyed Upon. So I'm going to bring her out here and you can meet her and hear her story. Can't wait. Hello, Amy. Thank you so much for being with me today and sharing with my audience your story, being bold and courageous. It takes a lot of courage to share a story like yours, and you are not alone. And so thank you for your courage.
Thank you for having me.
All right, well, your story starts when you were 12 years old, was when you were sexually abused. What was life like before that?
Well, and I actually was sexually abused for the first time at age 3. But 12 became kind of a pivotal time in my life because I was molested by a priest at the age of 12. And it was like another kind of father figure in my life to take advantage of me. So it really thrust me into a dark place. And on top of that, my mom was very sick with cancer and wasn't supposed to make it. And I was terrified of doing life without her.
Oh my, that is 12 years old to think about living life without your mom. Oh, that's awful. Well, at 12 years old, what happened? You said a priest did this, and how did you deal with that? How did you cope with that? 12 years old, your mom going through this priest thing going on. How did you deal with that?
Looking back, my depression started at age 12. I have struggled with depression off and on since then. So
Makes
it was
sense.
really, it was a really big turning point. And then, I think in an attempt to maintain some sort of control, over our lives when we feel like it's out of control and terrifying, we sometimes turn towards addictions. And so I ended up developing an eating disorder. It was probably around age 15 that it really kicked in. And I had that for a number of maybe 5 years. So that was, I think, one of the major ways that it manifested for me was to, take the blame onto myself, because if the abuse was my fault, then I could fix it. I could read enough books or get enough counseling and I could fix whatever was wrong so that the problem wouldn't really have to exist, so that the world wouldn't have to be that terrifying.
Right. Yeah, that's very common. Gabor Mate, expert in the field of trauma, he talks about how children blame themselves, and they do. They blame themselves because they can't make their caregiver or the person they're supposed to be looking up to the villain.
Right.
So they villainize themselves. But I see how you added another layer to that of trying to grab for control, which is just so normal, so human of you. I can just see that. Oh, wow. But then you told me that at the age of 12, that wasn't like the last time. Stuff happened after that. What happened?
Yeah, it's like early abuse kind of puts a target on our backs that other perpetrators can spot. And so it was around 15 that I was taken advantage of by a swim coach. When I was in my early 20s, I went to a physician and was taken advantage of then. And I knew what he was doing was wrong, but I just froze. I just couldn't speak. There was a friend in college. There was a massage therapist that I knew was being inappropriate with me, the way they were touching me. But again, I felt like it was my responsibility to sit quiet and keep my mouth shut and not make the perpetrator feel uncomfortable.
Wow.
Which is, I know is ridiculous, but that is
I understand though, but I get it. Say that again. Audience, hear her say that again. You didn't do anything because you didn't want.
I didn't think that I had the right to make the perpetrator feel uncomfortable.
Wow, just sit in that for a minute. That is such a normal response, and it's so inappropriate that you should be able to feel comfortable instead of caring about The abuser. Oh,
I know.
Lord.
I know it is very twisted, and sadly, it is very common.
Yeah. That just hurts my heart. I'm just getting all emotional here for a minute. But then you have a different situation that happened in your 40s, but this one was different than the others. Can you elaborate on that? What happened and how is that different?
Yes, in my 40s, I sought out a therapist for counseling. He was also a psychiatrist, so I thought he could manage my antidepressants that I was on. And he was also a church elder at my new church. Came highly recommended. What was different was that I had never, ever found myself in a situation where I was being groomed and where I was being slowly and carefully, manipulated and lured in to a trap, essentially, and
Wow.
only to then be able to be taken advantage of and toyed with as if I was, an animal in a cage. I had never, ever been through anything like that. And it was beyond devastating.
Wow. Wow. You talked about grooming with me. Can you elaborate on what we've heard grooming with children? I've had people on my podcast before with explaining grooming of children, but with an adult, it's different. And how you explained it to me, can you elaborate to help the audience understand what does grooming an adult look like? What's the manipulation that's taking place?
Yeah. And some of the things overlap, but for an adult, essentially, the perpetrator will seek out the voids that they have. And for a therapist, you're sitting duck because you're opening up about all these voids. So, are you disconnected in your marriage? Are you single and lonely? What is your friendship group like? Do you, what's your relationship with your parents like? Do you have a void for a mother figure? Do you have a void for a father figure?
Mhm.
And I mean, there's a multitude of what they could be, but they seek out whatever that void is inside of you, and then they seek to fill it. And I say magically, meaning it doesn't exist, but they create an illusion of whatever it is that you need.
Wow. That's so twisted.
It is so twisted because,
Wow.
you're responding, it's that child part of you might be responding to, say, the need for a father figure.
Mhm.
And so, in doing that, it's just a very powerful way to control, because you're not even really aware it's happening, and it's so deep seated that's why it's so strong. And then once you have this need starting to be met, you feel better and you feel like you're, like the therapy's working and my depression seems to be lifting, and he cares about me, and he makes me feel like I'm special, and he wants to hear me. A lot of times, married moms, there's not a lot of people in our lives that just want to sit and be attentive and listen to us and understand everything we're saying. So, these abusers, pretend to be that person, pretend to be the person that hears you and sees you and notices you. And that stirs something in you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That you can't quite explain, but you want more of that.
Yeah. Those are needs that we have, to be seen and to be known and to be heard. Those are needs that we have as human beings.
Yeah. And then other strong tools they use that they wouldn't use with children is they play on our guilt and our empathy. So he made sure to share things with me about him that made me feel sorry for him and made me see him as fragile and made me see him, as, instead of a doctor, as just another broken human. And therefore, when he started to be inappropriate, I felt guilty to leave him. He told me it would kill him if I left. How could I betray? Yeah, how could I hurt him after all I thought was trying to do for me? And then the guilt was he eventually stopped charging me for sessions, and he gave me longer sessions. I didn't ask for either of those things, but when it came to reporting him, I had a lot of guilt, because, well, look at what I thought he was trying to help me. And I thought he was doing those things out of kindness, I didn't realize they were just a manipulation tool. So those are some of the other ways.
Wow, that's sort of like how you felt with the massage therapist. You didn't want to make him feel uncomfortable, but he manufactured those emotions into you, but you had already had it. So that gave him like a leg up on his ability to twist things.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
you said you reported him. How did that happen? The whole reporting thing, you reported him to the board. You like the doctor in your 20s, you never reported anything like that. But this
no.
guy you reported, how did that happen and what took place
Yeah.
with that?
Yeah, this is actually the first time I ever stood up for myself in my life, and I'm very proud about that fact. But I originally just wanted out, and I originally just went to my pastor and his wife, and I just wanted them to help me get out. And I wasn't going to take it any farther than that because I was so ashamed, right? And so embarrassed and didn't even understand it myself. So how could I explain it to my husband and to my friends that I kept going back, but I didn't want to go back. And so I ended up telling a close friend about a week after I got out, and she was a mandated reporter, and informed me that she would be reporting him to the medical board, which I had mixed feelings about at the time, because I thought, if the world finds out that this happened, I'm going to be blamed and I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose my marriage. He's not going to understand. I'm going to lose my reputation. I'm going to be mocked and belittled. In time, yeah, it's terrifying. It's terrifying to report as a child and as an adult. Eventually, I got up the strength to report myself to the medical board. And then we went through an entire investigation with them. And I'd say within maybe 6 months or so, maybe 6 or 9 months, it concluded, and they allowed him to surrender his license permanently in my state. A few of the board members argued that they wanted to take the license from him, but then others pointed out that if the victim, me, would have to sit through a trial and how traumatic that would be. So we should just allow the doctor to surrender it. So that happened. And then I felt like I wanted more. I just felt like it was hardly any justice, because he was around retirement age and he pretended to retire. And so I ended up filing a civil suit, because I was informed that because therapist abuse is not criminal in my state, there's no legislation for it criminally, that it would be brutal for myself and my family, and the perpetrator would likely walk. So because criminal avenue wasn't available to me, I filed a malpractice lawsuit.
Wow. Is that still in process, or is that
No,
over?
it took 3 years, believe it or not, but it is over.
Wow. And did you win that suit?
We were successful in that.
Wow.
So it gave me an opportunity to fight for myself, which I'd never done. And although it was stressful and painful at times, it was healing for me.
Wow. Yeah. And then he didn't just get to go quietly into the night. Just, he had to face the music, so to speak.
A little bit, yes.
Wow.
It was really, it's really between he and his insurance company, but at least it's something.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you said you fought to get free. What did you learn in your fight to get free from him? What are some of the things that you learned?
Oh my goodness.
What did you learn about yourself? And you mentioned something about lies and stuff like that before.
Yeah. I realized as I was kind of sitting back and watching him take advantage of me. Now, I didn't realize he was taking advantage of me, but I mean, sitting back and watching as little red flags would happen. And I watched the way I responded to those things. And it was after I got out and I started putting the story down on paper is when I realized these kind of lies or that I was believing, or rules that I realized I had brought into that situation that came from childhood. For example, here I'll read you. Let's see, rule number 1, an authority figure does not make inappropriate choices. So if something they do makes you feel uneasy, then the problem lies with you. The implied rule states everyone else has more value than you and should be treated as such. Wow. And it's written that way to sound ridiculous, because it is ridiculous when we are actually accepting these things about ourselves as truth, and that we've taken these things from childhood and we don't really realize that they've kind of weaseled their way in, to the fabric of our being, and that and we're accepting them as truth, and then it's affecting our behavior. So I kind of, as I was writing, saw more and more of these rules. Like one of them is emotion is the source of your problems, not the result of it. Stamp it out. You know, that was a really strong childhood message that I created for myself, that I sensed. I sensed that I was too emotional and I was too sensitive. And if I wasn't that way, then things wouldn't be hard for me. You know, like
That's self-blame again.
It's
yes. Self-blame
oh
again.
my gosh. So basically what I realized, that the essence of what I realized when I got out, was the extreme amount of self-blame and self-hatred that I was still carrying. It's like, no wonder I was dealing with depression, you know?
Yeah, right. I heard Dr. Caroline Leaf speak recently, and she was talking about how depression is a normal response to things. It's not an illness. It's a response. Like she said that emotions are messengers.
That's
and when
awesome.
she put it that way, I've heard it, I use it in other ways. Emotions are responses. But when she used the term messenger, I thought of how just in everyday life, sometimes someone will tell you something and they tell you something that you don't want to hear. And then they go, don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah.
And I thought of that with emotion. You know, emotion is a messenger. And so often when we have these faulty beliefs and lies, like you're talking about these rules, we shoot the messenger. We shoot the emotion. We got to get rid of the emotion because the emotion is the problem.
Yes.
No, the emotion is the one telling you you have a problem. So depression is a perfectly good thing to have, but we need to listen to it because it's telling us something. It was telling you there's a reason you're feeling this way. And
right.
I'm just so thankful that you've got out. You have your book, and your book is called Preyed Upon, and it's Prayed, but then you put an E over the top in the prayed. Can you hold up your book and then explain why you did that with the preyed upon?
Yeah, I originally thought I was being preyed upon with an A. He was an elder at my church. He started out our sessions in prayer. I felt like I was in really good hands with this, religious leader that everybody respected.
He was an elder at your church?
Yes.
I knew you said that he was an elder.
Yes, and you have to understand that I had just fallen in love with this church. About a year prior, I felt like I was a new believer. I had come to this church through Celebrate Recovery, fallen in love with the church, loved my pastor, trusted him, just loved everything about it, was on this kind of high with God showing up in my life in these new ways. So then here I am getting to do counseling with this well-respected religious leader, elder at my church. So I thought, this is God's plan. I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed. And so anyway, thus the E written over the A. I don't realize until the whole thing was over and I got out, I didn't realize that I had been preyed upon, that I had been groomed. I thought maybe the red flags started, at this date. And then I realized, oh no, it was earlier. And then I had to accept the fact that it started on day one, that there had never been any true care or concern for me ever, that it was all just a joke and a game.
Wow. That's so awful. Oh my goodness.
It is.
Wow.
That's just a different level of evil that I've never encountered.
Yeah, it's like you get so excited about you're finally getting somewhere. You get this person of influence, so it adds to your sense of value. And then the opposites, the betrayal. Oh, such a sense of betrayal trauma that took place there. Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Well, in your book, you have rules. How many rules do you have in there?
I think I have old rules, maybe, and I should know this, but I think I probably have 20 old rules and 19 new.
Oh, you have old and new ones?
Yes.
Oh, can you share a new one with us?
Oh, yes. The new ones are my favorite.
I hope so. I'm excited to hear that, because that old one about authoritarian figures never do anything wrong. That's my wording. I didn't say it correctly, but
yeah,
that's what children think. They think, well, they're the authority. They have all the power, so they do no wrong. And so I'm the one that's doing everything wrong.
Yes. And so it was really empowering creating the new rules. I won't look for number one. Okay. Rule number 4, even if you are the only victim, you are valuable and deserving of rescue. Amen. Rule number 3, God is your defender. You owe an explanation to no one.
Amen. Oh, I like those
Yeah,
new
and
rules.
I won't give away anymore because they're so great.
Yeah,
But
hold up your book again and read the subtitle for us.
it's Preyed Upon, Breaking Free from Therapist Abuse. And
Wow.
you don't have to just be abused by a therapist. It can be a betrayal of any kind, and it
Right.
can actually even go more universal than that as to any kind of childhood hurts and how they change who we think that we are and how we need
Right.
to address that, in adulthood.
Yeah, and it's so progressive. Wow. Wow. I'm so glad you got free.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea. God used this experience to save me not only from this, but from the prison that I was living in emotionally that started as young as probably 3.
Wow. And see, God's good like that. He wants to rescue us completely, totally, and entirely, not just
Yes.
from one thing, but from everything. So
Yeah.
that's what being saved is. We're being saved from all that crap.
Yes. That's right.
Oh, well,
Saved from
how can
ourselves,
people
right?
connect with you? How can people connect with you?
My
And where
website,
can they get your book?
yeah, my website is www.amynordhues, AMYNORDHUES.com. They can buy my paperback on my website, or they can get it on Amazon or wherever else books are sold. And the ebook is on Amazon, and it's also in Kindle Unlimited if they are a member.
Awesome.
And it's
Wow. Are
going to
you on any
be,
of the social medias?
yes, mostly Facebook and Twitter.
Okay.
Those are where I communicate the most.
Okay. And they can probably find you on there from your website, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Um,
Awesome.
yes, all those links are there.
Oh, is there anything you want to share before we say goodbye to our audience?
I always say that I want other victims to know, especially adult victims, to know they're not alone, and that it is absolutely 100% not their fault, and that they
Amen.
are deeply loved.
Amen. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Amy. And
Yes.
thank you for your courage again. So much courage. Oh, wow. And I know that this story, as I get to share it in more places, it's going to help so many people because you are not alone. They
No.
are not alone, and you are not alone.
Yes. Thank
So
you
thank
so
you.
much.
I'll talk to you in a minute.
Okay.
So there you have it. Can you imagine? Oh my goodness, what a story. What a story. What courage it takes to share that story and to get free from something so ingrained like that. And that abuse just being paved the way through so many lies and those rules. And I encourage you, connect with Amy, get a copy of her book so you can learn her new rules so that you can empower yourself to speak up for yourself as well. So thank you for being with me today. I'm Danielle Bernack from DanielleBernack.com. Love yourself from Survive to Thrive, that lady on the internet who loves you. Mwah.